months, he electrified crowds across the country, and today India's people have made Narendra Modi their next Prime Minister, and it's a landslide for the BJP across the Hindi heartland as the party clinches the majority on its own hour.
But what is the view coming in from India Inc. as we get ready to welcome our new Prime Minister in Narendra Modi? To discuss this, we're joined by Godrej, MD and CEO of ICICI Bank, the Godrej Chairman of the Godrej Group. Mr. Godrej, let me begin with you. Do you think that Modi will be able to single-handedly revive investment sentiment in the country?
No, I think the results are very clear. It will be a very strong majority for the new NDA government. And I think it will be a very good opportunity for the government to take bold decisions to see that GDP growth in the country revives very rapidly. And I do hope they set a target of 8% plus growth for the next financial year.
Ms. Godrej, let me come to you next and talk to you about capital investments by India Inc. You know, we've seen that slowing down massively over the past couple of quarters, but are you hopeful that a new government will be able to kickstart sentiment, and especially, you know, what time frame do you really think that this will happen in, and do you think this will be able to turn around essentially?
Yes, I think if I look at, you know, my hope and expectations, I would divide them as immediate term and medium term. So as far as the investments is concerned, on an immediate basis, I would actually expect that a whole lot of decision making will come back in the environment, which means the existing investments which are stuck for want of approvals, you know, they should start getting approvals, those issues should get resolved, and the existing investments should start generating cash flows. I think that should be the first positive impact and really the first priority of the government. I think as the existing investments start getting declogged, that is when the corporate sector would get the confidence of thinking of the next round of investments. So, you know, this has to really move in two phases, bring back confidence, bring back cash flow generation from the existing investments, and thereby set the base for the next round of investments.
Right, Mr. Godrej, the same question to you really. Will a Modi government with its decisive mandate be able to quickly turn around sentiment?
Yes, provided the government takes the right steps, which I'm sure they will. One is the ease of doing business in India, which was never very good, but had deteriorated during the last 3 years, should be restored. Quick decisions must be taken by the government, by the bureaucrats. No difficulties must be placed on new projects. The second important thing the government needs to do is the several tax cases based on retrospective amendments and transfer pricing rules that have bogged investments down should be resolved very quickly. And third, industrial production is following a negative growth path. So fiscal stimuli are needed in the budget. If all this is done quickly, which is very eminently possible, then I think investments will revive very rapidly, sentiment will improve, consumption will increase, and that will lead to even further investments.
Mr. Godrej, what's the time frame that you're working with? Do you see a turnaround by, let's say, the second half of the fiscal?
Well, yes, I think the second half should certainly be better than the first half of this financial year, but I think the country should target an 8% plus growth rate for the next financial year. To my mind, it's eminently doable, especially with this strong government in place.
Ms. Godrej, what key expectations would you have from the new government, especially for the banking sector? You know, what should the new government do, in your opinion, to ensure that there's a return of confidence of foreign investors?
Well, I think the banking sector in a way is a barometer of the entire economy, and whatever happens in the economy impacts the banking sector. So in a way, the most important thing that the banking sector will look for today is really to, as I said, declog the existing capital investments, because if the existing investments of the corporate sector start becoming productive, I think that will augur well for the leverage levels and the corporate performance and so on. So that's the first thing that the banking sector would look for. The second thing, of course, would be, other confidence building measures like clearly, setting out clarity around the tax regime, taking away fears of retrospective changes on taxation and so on, because all these things also in a way build confidence, not just domestically but globally, and bring in capital flows. Again, that allows investments to take place in the country.
Chanda, now NPAs for the banking sector at a 9-year high. What do you expect the new government needs to do to tackle that? It's a huge concern. Even today we saw the banking index rally the most on the hope that the new government would come in with a spate of reforms. What are you looking forward to?
Clearly, I think two things that are really required. One is, as I said, a much more clear, decisive environment around approvals, because as projects get implemented, they remain viable, or their viability gets impacted based on how long do they take to get implemented. So, even the current some amount of stresses that may be there in the corporate performance are really a result of delays in project approvals. So, the first thing to tackle, this kind of stress is to really take project by project and ensure that all the clearances, whether around environment, around raw material access, natural resource access, etc., are all given, so that these projects start generating cash flows that can actually bring back cash flows within the corporate sector. So that's one thing. Second, of course, as much as we can do around strengthening the legal system in the country, again the legal decision making, recovery from the assets and so on, creating a more enabling environment there also can help the banking sector.
Alright, then let's talk about the macroeconomic indicators, Ms. Kochhar. WPI that we saw came in and that has really cooled off. The core retail inflation that we saw on Monday, that has also softened. Are you happy with where it is right now? Do you see that macroeconomic indicators are really bottoming out?
Yeah, I think, of course, if inflation really eases out, that's a very positive factor for the economy. But I think what we have to watch is, how does the monsoon pan out, and how does the entire agricultural output pan out. So I think it's a little early to say which way inflation will move and how fast. Clearly, therefore, the next few months are going to be critical to watch the movement of inflation as well as interest rates.
Mr. Godrej, as a senior leader from corporate India, while the RBI governor has dismissed any talks of differences with the BJP, do you have any concerns? Would you still be awaiting some kind of clarification to really be reassured on this front?
No, I have not noticed any differences of opinion. But well, the BJP government is not in place yet, so how can there be a difference of opinion? I have not seen any differences. I think Dr. Rajan has done an excellent job as the Reserve Bank governor. He has stabilized the rupee, he has contained the current account deficit, and I am sure he will continue to do a very strong job and work closely with the strong new NDA government.
Mr. Godrej, in its economic manifesto, the BJP has spoken about tax terrorism and referring, of course, to international arbitration. It also says that that is something that it will do everything possible to do away with. What are your views on that, sir?
No, that's what I mentioned. The tax cases based on retrospective amendment and transfer pricing regulations should be reviewed and sorted out. That's what the BJP referred to. If that is sorted out, I think the investment climate in India will improve very considerably, and a lot of investments will flow both from international sources and Indian sources.
What about FDI and multi-brand retail? The BJP has made it very clear that they're not in favor of it, and they of course also want to keep their allies happy. Do you expect that rollback for certain, and if so, any concerns with regards to really how this affects sentiment as well when it comes to government's flip-flop on some key policies?
Well, I can talk on my personal behalf. I personally feel we should open up FDI in all sectors. We shouldn't restrict FDI. Getting FDI is very useful for the economy of the country, and why should we constrain it, whether it is in multi-brand retail, insurance, pension funds, or any other sector. I'm personally in favor of opening up foreign direct investment.
A concern that we've seen, playing out in the markets is that the BJP could, if it could possibly look at rolling back FDI and retail today, it could look at some other sectors tomorrow, say FDI and aviation. Do you think that's a valid concern?
No, there are no valid concerns. As I said, I believe that FDI should be opened up in all sectors. Why should we restrict FDI? What are the concerns? There are no concerns.
Okay, let's talk about taxes as well. DTC, GST, they've all been long pending. You've in fact been talking about how important GST is now for a while. Do you think that the new government will have the political muscle, the political strength to finally see this through?
Well, I do hope that they push through both of them. The GST, to my mind, is extremely important. The Congress was for GST. So I guess if this government pushes through GST, they can expect the Congress to support it, because till very recently they were themselves pushing it. Of course, we must remember, while this government is very strong in terms of its representation in the Lok Sabha, it does not have a majority in the Rajya Sabha. So it will have to discuss and negotiate with the opposition parties to see that a constitutional amendment like the GST goes through the Rajya Sabha too. The earlier it's done, the better, because other things being equal, passing the GST from the very next day will add 2 percentage points to our GDP growth rate, other things being equal.
Sure. Mr. Godrej, you've seen the markets rallying after those exit polls have come out. The rupee has also rallied, but do you think this was some sort of irrational exuberance on the part of the markets? How are you reading into that huge rally?
No, I think it's very natural. When you have such a decisive political result, it will certainly have a very positive effect on the stock market and general economic sentiment. So I think my personal view is that in the next few months the stock market will go up even further.
On that note, we leave it there. Mr. Godrej, Chanda, thanks so much for joining us. We need to take a very quick break. When we return, we also speak to Kishore Biyani of the Future Group and CII President Ajay Sriram on what they're expecting from the Modi government. Do stay tuned.